everybody, this is Gwen, and I wanted to do a quick little project so that I could show you some of the different ways that you can use this month's Stencil Club collection that I designed. This is called Heraldry, and it was based on the concept of building your own family crest. When I designed these stencils, I wanted to make them something that would be a little bit more versatile because you can only design so many family crests. And so I thought it would be great if there were some patterns on here that you could really use for other things. And so I wanted to do a little art journal spread to just show some of the things that I had in mind as I was designing these. So I'm just going to start going and talk a little bit about what I'm doing here and there, and let's just make an art journal spread. So I am going to start by doing a little bit in the background. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Tight & Buff paint, and I'm doing heavy body. You can really use any that you want. I mean, the key to paint and stencils is not necessarily how thick the paint is, it's how little of it you get on your brush. So I'm going to go ahead and see, that's got way too much on my brush, and if I do it that way, then it's going to smush under the stencil. So you want just very little so you can see. So I'm going to start by putting some background pattern down. You can see I've already got a background prepped on my art journal. It's just a junk journal, so I've just sewed and painted over some scrap paper that I had sewn into a book. And I'm going to take this pattern that's in here and just start stenciling around. You could make this a repeating pattern if you wanted to. I designed it so that it would work that way. You would just pick it up and move it. And there you go. And now we can move it this way. I like to go off the edges. I feel like it helps bring good tension to the page whenever you can do that. Instead of having everything just float in the center, you want to have some kind of an anchor. So going off the page will really help with that. So that area, actually let's go off the page over on the side here. Let's get some more background in here, and then we'll move on to the next area. Let's move that back all the way into the frame. Okay, so I've got a background here, and before I do anything else, I want to make sure that this is dry. The layers are really thin and the air here is very dry, but I'm going to heat it with a heat gun just to make sure, and then we'll move on. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is create kind of a frame here on the page because I want to put a quote in it, but I don't want to start with the frame because I want to put some embellishment around it with other parts of the stencil. You can see that these stencils are just packed full of designs because I couldn't stand to let a single usable section of plastic go without a stencil in it. So the idea here is that really to get good use out of these, you're going to need to mask. For this, I'm going to use some archival ink, and I've got one of these little sponge thingies that goes on your finger. And when I'm masking and doing the finer work, I like this because it's going to make it a little easier. I want to put flowers around the edge of it. So I'm going to get an idea of where this is going to go and where the outline is. And I may just put a little, very light, you probably can't even see it on the camera, but I just got a little pencil line that's marking sort of where I want the edge of this to go so that I know where to put the embellishments. So I'm going to start with the elements that I want to be on the top. So you kind of have to think this through. And I want flowers, so I'm going to start with the focal point flower. So where's my line? My line's right here, so I'm going to put a flower. Just get my ink. Alright, so the first flower is down, and now is the part where we start masking because as I put down further layers, I'm going to make them look like they're behind what's already on the page. So now I'm going to get my paper. You can get really fancy, and you could stencil this onto the piece of paper and then cut it out and use a mask that's the exact shape of the stencil. I do that a lot in rubber stamping. I do it sometimes with stenciling. I am feeling a little bit lazy right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just, what I may do though, is let's just get a curved edge here. So we've got a curved edge. There, that'll fit a little bit better. And now I'm going to put another flower, and we're going to make it look like it's tucked behind. Voila! Very nicely masked little flower. So now let's turn this around. I want to put one on the other side because I like to do things in odd numbers. Okay, we have flowers. Now you can see those are going to go along the edge of my little frame here. And now these little designs here, that's called, in heraldry, this is mantling. And that's what's going to go on or around your crest or your shield. But I also like these because you can create borders with them. You can put them back to back and create a border. You can do corners with these, as I showed in my introduction video. And in this case, I'm going to just use it as a flourish. It doesn't have to be, the mantling is in the position on the shield. In this case, I just want to flourish. I've got a flourish that's coming out from behind there. And now you could flip these, but the designs are slightly different if you use the opposite one. So now I have a nice flourish. And really, you could do that on its own. You could do this as a border along the side or, you know, around the edge of a circle. It doesn't have to be this particular shape, but in this case, this is the set I'm using, so I am using this shape. All right, and now for this one, I'm going to go back to my little mini sponge. And look, how cool is that? I'm going to grab a black pen, and what I want to do is just kind of close over the bridges from the stencil so that I have a nice solid line. You can go over the design if you want to, again, fill in the bridges. Obviously, you don't have to do this. This is just a personal thing that I like to do. I think that it makes it look more like something that you've drawn rather than something that you stenciled if you kind of go over it and fill in the gaps. But I'm going to do is I am totally making this up as I go along, lest you think that I planned this all out beforehand. No, kind of making it up. So I think I just want a little bit of something inside there. Now you could really go in and paint these. You could leave them just like this. You could, depending on what you've got underneath, you could watercolor them. You could use pastels. Different kinds of oil or chalk would probably work too. I'm just going to happily go on coloring here. Pick out some different colors, that kind of thing, and I'll be back. Okay, I am almost done going back through. I'm just adding some extra lines in here to make sure things are nice and defined. And you can see I've gone in now and I've just colored everything in. Nothing fancy, no blending or anything really crazy like that. Just pretty standard, just coloring. I like to design images that have open spaces so you can color. And so you can see these are the different brands that I've used. I used the Molotow. I really like these a lot. They don't seem to dry out. They have good strong color and they flow really well. I like these. The Posca pens are really good, and then just the Sharpie, just a water-based Sharpie. I've used the black and then this really light pink. Okay, so I've got my stamp pad. Let me go back there. I'm just going to stamp a quote in the middle of this. I've got my old alphabet stamp set from Postmodern Design. Let's just start stamping. Now obviously, I am not really bothered by things not lining up, or I wouldn't have chosen this particular stamp set. But I was thinking, you know, as we're getting close to Thanksgiving as I'm doing this page, and so the quote is, "Gratitude turns what we have into enough," and it's one of my favorite quotes, and I thought that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, so I thought, well, art journal is the perfect place to put that kind of thing. So now I have a nice little sentiment on my page, and let's see, maybe, you know, enough is never enough for me. So let's play with this a little bit more. I added a couple of extra little designs onto this stencil because I couldn't stand to have those 2 extra corners with nothing on them. I think I kind of like that. Let's do some of these little guys along the border. Well, there we go. I actually really like that with the border. I had not planned on that at all until the last minute. But I like how that turned out. And you know, I could take a marker. What do you think of that color? I think I'm going to color. I'll be back. Whew, all right. So this is a pretty typical process for me. I'll start something and then add something, and then I need to color, and then I need to add dots. And so that's what I did here. I did that repeating pattern from the 4x4 stencil all the way across, and then I colored it, and then I added dots, and now it looks a little bit like Argyle, but that's okay. I actually really like this. So I think at some point I'm going to add some journaling in here, so it'll probably be something private. But now I'm just going to finish this off. I'm going to go back to my ink pad. I just like to frame the page a little bit. Just kind of close it in and give it a sense that it's finished. I think that's it. I've got my quote, I've got my border, my background, I've edged it. All it needs is a little bit of journaling, and I think I'm done. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some ideas on how to take these stencils that seem very much like they're for one purpose and one purpose only, but how you can take them and use them for other things completely, and also how you can mask them and layer the designs together so that you can create all different kinds of borders and embellishments and backgrounds and all that kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what you do with this month's stencils.